Mosin Man. Today I'm going to talk about the Finnish Mosin-Nagant M39 Physica sniper rifle, or the M39PH, which is definitely not a Bubba Mosin. In fact, this scope and rifle combination is so rare that this example is only one of 3 complete pieces located outside of Finland. First things first, we're going to cover a few things in today's video. I'm going to cover the history and development of the M39PH sniper rifle. Secondly, I'm going to explore the unique characteristics of this. And lastly, in conclusion, I'll go over how many of these still exist and how you can determine an original from a forgery. I'm not worried about anyone using this video to create a fake M39PH, as the parts required simply don't exist, unlike an M39 SOV, where there are far more fakes than there are originals. The Finnish Mosin-Nagant M39PH sniper rifle stands out from other Finnish sniper rifles and all other Mosin-Nagant-based sniper rifle designs for several reasons, the most important of which is its unique Physica scope. Unlike traditional telescopic rifle sights, the M39PH uses a box-shaped prismatic sight. This design, originally intended for both rifles and machine guns, had major drawbacks such as its weight and limited field of view. However, the Finns could produce it domestically, unlike more advanced telescopic designs. The Physica scope had a limited production with only around 300 units made in Finland, and the M39PH is significantly rarer than other Finnish sniper rifle variants as a result. The number of 300 is really deceptive. Despite production numbering in the hundreds, the fragile nature of the Physica scope led to the Finns scrapping many examples. Unlike other Finnish sniper rifles, such as the M39-43 Ajax and the M39 SOV, the M39PH could not be easily converted back into what I would call an infantry rifle configuration due to its unique mounting system in stock, which had a large cheek piece on the left side which could not be easily removed. This present-day scarcity adds to its historical significance and collector value. The Physica scope wasn't specifically designed for sniper rifles, but more rather adopted for them. This universal approach resulted in a unique configuration not seen under the World War II era sniper rifles. In terms of historical context, the M39PH really emerged in use during the Continuation War, where the Finns needed effective sniper rifles, or rather any sniper rifles, and resulted in the M39PH being pressed into service despite concerns about its overall durability. Its development and use reflect the resourcefulness and the ingenuity of the Finnish military during World War II. While reports on its performance vary, its unique scope design and wartime limitations spark some discussions and debate amongst gun enthusiasts and historians alike. In summary, the M39PH's distinctive box-shaped prismatic scope sets it apart visually and functionally. Its rarity and the general lack of historical photography of it contribute to the allure among collectors. And lastly, the quote-unquote universal scope adaptation and continuing debates concerning its performance add some layers of historical intrigue as well as some present-day debate about the utility of such a piece. Before we get into the history of the M39PH, it's best to talk about the Finnish Army's attitude towards sniping, sniper rifles, and sniper rifle training before World War II. Although the Finnish Army has a reputation because of Timo Hyytinen, the White Death, they really did not practice formal sniper rifle training before World War II because their total number of sniper rifles in service was absurdly small. The Finnish Civil Guard, which was a separate organization than the Finnish Army, fared a little bit better than the Army did during the 1930s. The Civil Guard designed its pre-war rifle marksmanship training to make its members expert riflemen who could reliably hit long-range targets. This training was well-suited for sniper rifle training, and in the 1930s, the Civil Guard provided sniper rifle training to a limited number of the Civil Guardsmen it had, with a combined total of 36 M28 and M33 sniper rifles, the M33 being a derivative of the M28-30 design. However, these 36 sniper rifles remained an insignificant amount when compared to the total number held by the Soviet Red Army. As a result, the equipment of Finland's snipers lagged far behind that of the Soviet Union by the time the Winter War began on 30 November 1939. The Finnish Army would never achieve parity with the Soviet Red Army in this regard during World War II, despite its best efforts to capture, purchase, and domestically produce more sniper rifles. The Soviet Red Army, in comparison to the Finnish Army, had very similar experiences coming out of World War I. in that they did not have any domestic sniper rifles at the end of World War I, although the Soviet Red Army would take a much more proactive approach to this than the Finnish Army did at that time. Although both armies suffered from a lack of funding, the Soviets quickly realized that they could take advantage of their interwar illicit partnership with the Germans to develop new sniper rifles. The Soviet Union's partnership with Germany proved fruitful during the 1920s as they gained access to state-of-the-art optics they could not initially manufacture domestically. However, this quickly changed, as would be later seen with other weapons systems. Looking at Tu-4 Bull, aka the B-29, the Soviets proved adept at not only copying but also improving foreign designs. By 1939, this practice placed them at the forefront of sniper rifle development. The Red Army viewed their Model 1931 M9130 PE sniper rifle, known among collectors as the PE top mount, as a serviceable piece of equipment but improvable largely due to a perceived wandering zero that occurred when the rifle's point of aim shifted due to the loosening of the Smirsky mount's attachment screws. Only 4 years later, after the M9130 PE sniper rifle's introduction, this shortcoming convinced the Red Army to begin the development of a new scope mount. The Red Army subsequently adopted a modified German Gecko side mount for the modified PE scope, the PEM scope, and standardized it as the Model 1936 sniper rifle, commonly referred to as the M9130 PEM side mount amongst collectors, which began production in 1938 at Tula. The Red Army held over 54,000 M9130 PE and PEM side mount sniper rifles in frontline service when the Winter War started on 30 November 1939. While the Finnish Army could only field a handful of prototypes. In comparison, the Finnish Army's brief experimentation with sniper rifles during the 1920s came to a halt by 1927. Despite initial promise adapting the Japanese Arisaka rifles it inherited to use telescopic sights, the Finnish Army decided that the M27 infantry rifle would be the standard going forward, after its introduction into service in 1927. However, the M27 ran into so many problems during its initial service that it delayed the Army's plans to introduce a sniper rifle based upon it. The Finnish Army began testing new scopes in 1935, but somehow managed to produce even fewer working prototypes than the Civil Guard. The Army and the Civil Guard shared an unhealthy rivalry that usually benefited neither. The Army was loath to build upon any of the work done thus far by the Civil Guard with either the M28 or the M33 sniper rifles, and on 7 September 1935 ordered 2 experimental sniper rifles made from converted M27 rifles at Arsenal 1, Aseet 1, and duly converted 2 M27s, serial numbers 50653 and 52608, into sniper rifles, but the project was unsuccessful and shelved in favor of the M37 sniper rifle. For reasons unknown, the Finnish Army chose to pursue the domestic development of a new sniper rifle scope rather than purchasing one abroad. Whether this was a point of national pride or a desire to outshine the Civil Guard, it really just pushed the Army's sniper rifle development further behind schedule. Eventually, the Finnish Army decided it required a universal optical sight that could be mounted on both its M32, M33 Maxim machine guns and its sniper rifles, which it didn't own yet. They gave rough specifications to the Finnish optics manufacturer Physica AB in Helsinki, which designed the resulting scope. The Finnish Army's insistence that the scope could work with either the M33 Maxim machine gun or the M27 rifle proved challenging for Physica AB. It seems the saying of "jack of all trades, master of none" never occurred to the Finnish Army. The Finnish Army initially contracted with Leonard Lindelof Kontadas, Leonard Lindelof's Metalworks, to produce the first series of prototype mounts for the Physica scope. But the resulting mount and base placed the Physica scope too high and too far forward on the M27's rifle's receiver for the shooter to obtain a proper cheek weld. The next series of prototype mounts offset the Physica scope high on the left rear of the rifle's receiver, an arrangement that remained far from ideal and required serious welding work on the M27 rifles selected for the conversion into sniper rifles. Despite these problems, the Physica sniper rifle project pushed slowly forward. It completed the Finnish Army's trials by December of 1937, and and they subsequently designated the M27 equipped with the Physica scope as the M37 sniper rifle. The Finnish army would eventually order 250 Physica scopes from Oy Physica AB, intending to mount 150 on the new M37, or known by collectors and later by the Finnish army more colloquially as the M27PH sniper rifle, and set aside the remaining 100 scopes for their M32-33 Maxim heavy machine guns. The Army never utilized the latter group of scopes in their intended role, and later pulled them from storage to build M39 Physica sniper rifles, which we'll be talking about shortly. Oy Physica AB's ensuing manufacture of Physica scopes proved exceedingly slow, as was Leonard Lindelof's Konhadas's fabrication of the accompanying scope mounts. The scope mounts, in particular, required an incredible amount of precision and hand fitting on each M37 sniper rifle. When the Winter War commenced on 30 November 1939, the Finnish army possessed only 84 of the 250 Physica scopes that it had ordered. Worse yet, none of the 84 Physica scopes had been installed on the M27 rifles selected for conversion. Although AV-1 did complete the final assembly of the first 150 Physica sniper rifles in June of 1940, this was still months after the end of the Winter War, and as a whole, the model proved so unsatisfactory that the Finnish army ordered no further production of the M27PH sniper rifle after AV-1 completed the initial 150 examples. In addition to the multitude of issues noted earlier, feedback from early combat reports found that the Physica rifle scopes experienced fogging issues and proved far more difficult to maintain than captured Soviet rifle scopes, such as the PE and the PEM. The number of M27PH sniper rifles in service decreased during the Continuation War, as the Finnish army wore them out, lost them in combat, or cannibalized them for use on later M39PH sniper rifles. By 1951, the Finnish army and the post-war Finnish Defense Forces held only 24 M27PH sniper rifles in their inventories. Although the Finnish army originally intended to use the Physica scopes with both its rifles and machine guns, the onset of the Winter War and the Continuation War sidelined the use of the Physica scope on the Maxim machine guns that they were previously set aside for. In January of 1943, the Finnish Army's Ordnance Department discovered the 100 Physica scopes previously ordered for use with the Maxim machine guns and found that they remained uninstalled. The Army immediately directed the utilization of these extra Physica scopes on the newest M39 rifles due to the severe shortage of sniper rifles on the front lines. The Finnish Army designated the pairing of the Physica scope with the M39 rifle as the M39PH. As with the similar M27PH sniper rifle, Leonard Lindelof fabricated the scope mounts, which were similar to those used on the M27PH sniper rifle, with an installation bracket positioned on the left rear bridge of the Mosin-Nagant receiver. The ungainly arrangement resulted in an unnaturally high cheek weld for the shooter, necessitating the production of a special M39PH rifle stock with a spliced portion designed to give the shooter a higher cheek rest. The final assembly of the M39PH sniper rifles occurred at AV-1 and at AV-3, AV-1 being in Helsinki, AV-3 being in Kuopio. The M39PH sniper rifle used two distinct styles of stocks during its production run. Due to production difficulties, the Finnish Army switched to a new stock in which the arsenals spliced a cheek rest in place with two wooden dowels and cemented it with glue, rather than building the stock that way from the start. Unfortunately, the M39PH sniper rifle inherited all the difficulties encountered by the previous M20H sniper rifle. Even so, the M39PH had completely supplanted the M27PH in service by the end of 1943, and almost completely removed it from service by the end of 1944. The Finnish arsenal at AV-1 removed the Physica scopes and mounts from the worn-out M27PH sniper rifles, and cannibalized them to build more M39PH sniper rifles. This reallocation of scopes resulted in the production of approximately 100 more M39PH sniper rifles before the end of the Continuation War in late 1944. All of the M39 rifles built into M39PH sniper rifles used VKT barrels, produced at Valtion Kavare Tadas or the State Rifle Factory. According to a 1951 inventory, the post-war Finnish Defense Forces still held 193 M39PH sniper rifles in storage. The Finnish Defense Forces kept the M39PH sniper rifles in depot-level storage in case of a full-scale mobilization during the Cold War. It did not allow them to be fired as they deemed them dangerous to the shooter due to the problems with the Physica scopes. Despite their faults, they remained mothballs for potential use all the way through the 1980s. The FDF finally scrapped the remaining examples in the late 1980s. Now that we've covered the history of the M39PH sniper rifle, we're going to look at some of the characteristics that it had that make it unique. First off, the M39PH sniper rifle used two discretely different stock types. The first variation is identifiable by the sling slot that is still present on the left side of the buttstock. The later variation used a splice for the cheek rest and thus did not have a side-mounted sling slot, relying on the sling attachment point on the underside of the buttstock. As with the stocks, there are two different types of scope mounts used on M39PH sniper rifles. The mounts with a large oval demounting hole are originally from M27PH sniper rifle production and constitute salvage examples recycled to build new rifles. The mounts with small, circular-shaped demounting holes constituted new production by Leonard Lindelof Contadas to be paired with the approximately 100 Physica scopes originally intended for mounting on Maxim heavy machine guns. For reasons unknown, the M39PH sniper rifle used only barrels produced at the State Rifle Factory of Voltion Cavate Das, better known by collectors as VKT. Despite fighting an existential conflict, relations between the Finnish Army and the Civil Guard remained icy at best during World War II. With the production of the M39PH sniper rifles occurring at Finnish Army arsenals, it may have simply been more convenient for them to work with a supplier that answered more directly to them. Every known M39PH sniper rifle has a VKT M39 barrel with a date ranging between 1941 and 1944. Surprisingly, the Finnish Army's arsenals constructed a large percentage of these sniper rifles with 1943 dated M39 barrels. And for those not in the know, any 1943 dated VKT M39 is an absolute rarity, as they produced no more than a few dozen that year. In contrast to most military rifle scopes from that era, the Physica scope's reticule incorporated silhouettes for expedited range approximations and leading targets, which were features far ahead in advance of its time. That and the inherent accuracy of the M39 rifle that the Finnish Army used as a starting point in its development comprised most of its redeeming qualities. It is currently unknown if American Warner and Swasey M1908 and M1913 telescopic sights, which used prismatic designs, inspired the Finns' Physica scope. If they did, then the Finns learned nothing from the American experience with the Warner and Swasey sights during their combat in World War I with the U.S. Army. The prismatic Physica scope, eponymously named after its manufacturer, possessed a bevy of similar flaws. The basic design was suitable enough for use with the Army's Maxim machine guns, but lacked the precision required for a sniper rifle. The box-like Physica scope weighed almost 2 pounds. And the M27 and M39 rifles that it was adapted to required drastic modifications for it to achieve the most rudimentary functionality. The Physica scope itself received the bulk of complaints from Finnish troops. Overall, they viewed it as heavy, with unneeded weight, and which also impeded handling, making quick target acquisition difficult. It was also awkward to use, as the design lacked ergonomic features, making proper eye alignment challenging. Lastly, there was limited eye relief, which meant the user needed to hold the stock very close to their face, increasing the risk of injury from recoil. Plus, the design was prone to fogging. In the cold Finnish climate, condensation could form inside the scope. Ultimately, the Finnish Army never solved the problems caused by the prismatic optics used on the Physica scope. The repeated firing of the Physica sniper rifles habitually knocked the prisms out of alignment, and the scope was prone to moisture condensation, which clouded the internal optics and made it difficult to see clearly. The heavy offset scope made the rifle unbalanced and challenging to bring on target quickly. Lastly, the Finnish Army also neglected to fit the scope with a rubber eyepiece to mitigate the short eye relief. Additionally, Finnish troops found that they needed to hammer the Physica scope off its mount because the recoil of each successive shot fired drove the scope deeper into the mount. Although each Physica scope was supplied with a dismounting lever, this often proved wholly inadequate for removing the scope when it became stuck fast. The M39PH had two main competitors in Finnish Army service, both of which will be covered in later videos. The M39PH possessed few advantages over either the M39 SOV or the M39-43 Ajax. Although it was available in greater numbers than the M39 SOV, it remained much more temperamental in frontline service. The M39 SOV predated the introduction of the M39PH into service, but it was completely reliant on the utilization of captured Soviet optics such as the PE and PEM scopes, as well as Model 1931 Smirsky mounts and bases. Although the Finnish Army captured the Model 1936 PM side mount in the low dozens, they made little effort to adapt this design to the M39 rifle. The Finnish Army produced the M39 SOV in limited numbers, and the total production did not exceed 150 examples. The M39-43 Ajax sniper rifle represented the best Finnish sniper rifle design of World War II, in my opinion. However, due to the limited number of Ajax scopes provided by Germany, approximately 500, the Finnish Army never possessed this system in the numbers that it desired. Although the scope itself was excellent, the Finnish-produced mounts and bases left much to be desired and often broke. In the grand scheme of things, though, it was much easier for the Finnish Army to build more mounts and bases or cannibalize them from broken rifles. As a result, the M39-43 sniper rifle soldiered on until it was gradually replaced during the 1980s. In conclusion, the M39PH wasn't an ideal sniper rifle by modern standards due to its scope's limitations as well as the limited production of the rifle. However, in its historical context, it represented a valuable step forward in Finnish military technology and contributed to their wartime efforts despite its shortcomings. It saw continued combat usage during the Continuation War, largely because the Finnish army suffered from a chronic shortage of sniper rifles. In this regard, having an inferior product is sometimes better than not having any product at all. And for curious minds, no, I have never shot my M39PH sniper rifle, nor do I have any plans to do so at this point in time. So, did I miss anything important? You have any questions about Finnish history or Mosin-Nagants burning in your mind? Let me know and let's keep the conversation going. I love hearing your thoughts and answering your questions in the comments below. Feel free to leave me a comment telling me what you've thought about the content and what you'd like to see next. Don't forget to hit that like button if you enjoyed the video and to subscribe for more content. I'll see you next time in another video.